Welcome back. You are watching Newscentre. The government is weighing the auto industry's demand for a third phase of the FAME scheme. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 that the automotive industry bodies have sought an extension of the electric vehicle subsidy program. The FAME 2 scheme, with an outlay of 10,000 crore rupees, is set to end by March 2024. The industry says a third installment of the scheme could put more focus on charging infrastructure, two-wheelers and buses. A report by ICRA says central government's FAME 2 and EV schemes in 25 states have pushed EV adoption to 4% of total vehicle sales in India. ICRA expects India's electric two- and three-wheeler adoption to rise to 30% and 40% respectively by 2030. For cars, the report expects adoption to increase from 1% currently to 15% by 2030. However, the report highlights some key challenges the industry could face with rising EV adoption, and these include lack of charging infrastructure and high import dependence. To discuss that and more, we're now joined by Shamsher Dewan, Senior Vice President at ICRA, and Arun Vinayak, CEO and co-founder at Exponent Energy. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here on Newscentre. Shamsher, if I can begin with you, these projections that ICRA has made in its latest report, do they account for the FAME scheme to continue till 2030, or have you made these calculations without FAME subsidy?
Yeah, hi, Parikshit. Thanks for having me on this call. Our estimates for 2030, as you rightly mentioned, these are without the subsidies continuing for a fairly long period of time. As we have seen in some of the global markets, the industry, the EV industry, with demand incentive for a period of the incentive programs have been waived off. So to that extent, we believe that these numbers that we've put out for penetration across various segments factor in that after 3 to 4 years, the industry will be in a position wherein the economies of scale plus localization factors will drive economic viability on its own. And at that point in time, there won't be a requirement for demand incentives to continue any longer.
Right. Arun, thank you so much for being with us on Newscentre. Let me begin by asking you, currently, the government has no proposal for a FAME 3, but yes, they're considering the industry's demand for an extension. And the thinking is that maybe the two-wheelers, charging infrastructure, and even buses need that subsidy push for a few more years. When it comes to charging infrastructure, the electric vehicle ecosystem, so to say, what is the kind of push that we continue to need for the government, and till when, according to you, Arun?
Thanks, Parikshit, for having me here. The first two waves of incentives has been around demand on the vehicle side, also on the supply on the vehicle side. The demand-linked FAME incentive and the production-linked incentives that have both helped sort of churn out a lot more demand and supply for vehicles. As that's sort of been successful, we need to appropriately start incentivizing charging stations to serve and also not end up becoming a bottleneck for the projections that we're all looking at for EVs, right? And I think when we look at incentives for charging stations, I think we should take a similar approach like we have for vehicles. Not every vehicle is eligible for FAME. There is a localization need, and there's also a performance and quality need that needs to be met before you are actually eligible for FAME. Similarly, not every charging station deserves subsidy. You can't just set up a smart plug point and say, hey, I now want subsidy from the government. So that we need to ensure that the charging stations that are being incentivized are actually doing more good than harm. They're delivering reliability and safety, and they're able to cater to segments that really need public charging. If you look at a large part of vehicles in India, we all park on the road. So there's no point trying to incentivize premium charging stations for the premium vehicles. We need to be looking at how are we incentivizing both vehicles and charging for more price-sensitive markets. Like commercial vehicles, for example, they're all vehicles that park on the road. They definitely need public charging. Home charging is not even an option for them. So I think those are the factors that need to be sort of thought through. Even in buses today, private buses don't get fame. So I think both from a vehicle and charging side, we should be looking at buses as well.
Right. When it comes to the global example, Shamsher, what has been the subsidy story? Have countries started tapering down the subsidies? And once you taper down the subsidies, as per the global example, do you see a drop in adoption, a drop in sales as well? The reason why we're asking you this question is because monitoring of the FAME scheme and the incentive disbursements has been an issue. There has been a big investigation into the FAME scheme here in India, and that investigation still continues as well. So what has been the global example that India must emulate?
I think that's a very interesting question. And if you look at what's happening globally, and you look at some of the main global automotive markets like China, Europe, and US, particularly in China, the government, after a period of very long period, they've started tapering down on the overall benefits that are available to the EV sector. And just to share some numbers with you, till 2020, the overall EV penetration, by EV here I mean all kinds of technologies put together, including plug-in hybrids and strong hybrids. The overall penetration in China was close to about 6%. And with the overall incentive program, it touched 13% in 21. And by 2022, I think that number was between 25 to 26%. Now, at the end of 2022 and beginning from 23 onwards, the government there actually, started tapering off a significant part of the incentive program which was available, but certain, schemes still continued. But despite that, what has happened is that, the penetration of electric vehicles has continued to rise. And, if you look at the numbers, I think that's reaching upwards of 35% now in the first half of this calendar year. So two things are happening there. On one side, I think the industry has reached a tipping point where, the vehicles are making economic sense on their own without much incentive program. And that is possible because of the fact that, in China, the entire ecosystem has come into picture, wherein they are not just manufacturing most of the, components that go into electric vehicles, but today China is the largest manufacturer of EV battery cells as well. And within that also, they have gone for complete backward integration into refining and processing of materials that go in. So to that extent, I think they've been able to achieve a cost structure which is making vehicles, affordable on their own. And at the same time, they have also now mandated OEMs to, in certain cities to have certain percentage of vehicles which are electric. So it's a combination of all those factors. And likewise in many of the European markets as well. I think the point where subsidies were no longer required, the EV penetration continues to increase.
Right. So those are important points. You need to create an entire ecosystem to maintain a low cost of ownership. Coming back to you, Arun, when it comes to the density of charging infrastructure, over the next 5 years, what is the kind of charging network that we would need in India? According to this latest report by ICRA, there are about 45 to 50,000 public charging stations in the country. A bulk of them are slow chargers. But according to you, what is the kind of charging density that is needed to really jumpstart the EV ecosystem?
When we look at petrol stations today, there are roughly 70,000 petrol stations all over India. And in a city like Bangalore, you probably have 300 to 400 petrol stations. So when we go electric, it's not going to be 300 or 400 electric charging stations. It's probably going to be more like 4,000 to 10,000 charging stations if you're talking about fast and rapid charging. Slow charging is really not an option anymore if we go into the future. Convenience-wise, obviously, it's a big bottleneck to your operations. And also the cost of slow charging is on a per unit basis is very, very high. I set up a piece of land, I charge 1 or 2 vehicles a day. It doesn't make sense for anyone, not the end user, not the charge point operator. So the entire industry is definitely starting to think fast and rapid charging. And so you're probably going to have a 20x sort of petrol station number when you talk about density with respect to charge point operators.
Right. Take us through some of the solutions that you're offering to the customer, which you feel will be needed in an EV ecosystem which is growing. Everyone is saying that the world is moving towards electric, but as you said, even capacity utilization for someone investing in land, investing in property for charging infrastructure can be an issue going forward. So what are some of the solutions that you're offering?
Yeah, at Exponent, we provide a rapid charging stack. We're not just a charging company. We do both chargers and batteries. We charge vehicles completely in 15 minutes. And this creates a bunch of incentives. Firstly, the vehicle battery size can be reduced, right? Today, I actually think the FAME subsidy has made a lot of OEMs lazy, because you have a capacity-linked incentive. You can just put a large battery and get away with it because the government is paying for it. There's no pressure to innovate and find more efficiency in the vehicle or find more innovative solutions. I actually think we should move away from demand-linked incentives to production-linked incentives, to maybe even financing incentives, or even charging station-based incentives. This will allow the entire ecosystem to find more innovative solutions. And we sort of want to play a role in that by saying, hey, you don't need large batteries anymore, put in a small battery and charge it up really quickly. On the same side, that makes the vehicle very cost-effective. On the other end, we're able to say on the same piece of land, we're going to be able to charge 20 to 30 vehicles a day. Actually, a lot of our charging stations today are doing 20 plus sessions a day, which is the highest in the world, right? So this has fundamentally fixed the unit economics behind charging stations. It's very, very easy to set up a charging station. It also, in absolute capital, if a petrol station requires 2 crores to set up, charging station only requires 5 to 10 lakhs to set up. So it's an order of magnitude lower. The problem is charging stations don't make money. That's why it doesn't get enough people excited to invest and grow the network. So that's what needs solving, and that's what Exponent is focused on.
All right, we've run out of time, but Arun, Vinayak, Shamsher, Dewan, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Let's see what the government does in terms of the next phase of the FAME scheme now. That's all we have time for here on Newscentre. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.